welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Kishelle. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hi, write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Valera. Welcome. Oh, Valeria. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Helia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kiner. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hi everyone, welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to, shout out to Bella. Shout out to Miran. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Adley. Shout out to Lonnie or Lainey. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Audrey. Whoops. Let me write your name again. I kind of messed up. Shout out to Audrey. Oh, Lonnie. Okay. Thank you for showing me how to write, spell your name. Pronounce your name. Shout out to Eilish. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sebastian. Shout out to Taha. Shout out to, hi Audrey, welcome back. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Mariella. Shout out to Bella. Eilish. Oh, okay. Thank you, Eilish, for showing me how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Amir. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Manat. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Nandini. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Tanvi. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to 11. Shout out to Grace. Happy late birthday. I hope you had a really nice day yesterday. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Renara. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Rory. Shout out to Armin. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Ace. Shout out to Dustin. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Will. Shout out to Nadia. Shout out to Miller. Shout out to Max. Shout out to Lucas. Shout out to, hello, welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Magda. Shout out to Ensley. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Ensley. Shout out to Sukruti. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Jessica. Welcome. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Blakely. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Lakshay. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to, hello, welcome, Kamoya. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Babette. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to 11. Shout out to, oh, Lainey, I got you. Shout out to Alize. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Ata. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ruben. Shout out to YOLO. Shout out to Ellen. Shout out to Desi. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Vecna. Shout out to Adele. Oh no, I spelled it wrong. Give me 1 second. There we go. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Diego. Shout out to Yata. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Aliyah. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Ro. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Mario. Shout out to Joyce. Shout out to Rasiah. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Annabella. Shout out to Tawny. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Jayla. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Josiah. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Onyx. Shout out to Lilia. Shout out to Starla. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Mim. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Marush. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ginger. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Khadijah. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Shira or Shira. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Bryce. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Poppet. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Anwar. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Ruben. Shout out to Alex. Oh, I just got Alex. Shout out to Rudy. Shout out to Denise. Shout out to Dixie. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Leanna. Shout out to Is it Ibrahim? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Oh, Ibrahim John. Let me write it again. Shout out to Ibrahim John. Shout out to Kavita. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to Noor. Shout out to Essence. Shout out to Jolie. Shout out to Chips. Shout out to Amara. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Sprout. Shout out to Mahathi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Allah. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Avia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Pooja. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Adele. Shout out to Solehash. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Kamar. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Brennan. Shout out to Camden. Shout out to Kamoya. Shout out to Ivy. Write your name again if I haven't gotten to you. Thank you so much for your patience. Shout out to Isla. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Billy. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to Dial. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Devesh. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Hillary. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Lala. Shout out to Jayla. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Phoebe. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Jayla. Oh, I got Jayla right here. Shout out to Dandy. Shout out to Ruth. Shout out to Sarah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shelly. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Astro. Shout out to Aram. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Toby. You're welcome. Shout out to Tiger. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Aris. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Tegan. Shout out to Sina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mizan. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Mommy. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Bo. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to Oakley. Shout out to Gliston. Shout out to Yuna. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Penny. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Jesus. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to, you're welcome. Shout out to Sanaya. Shout out to Layla. Or Leela, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Princess. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Boxton. Shout out to Annalie. Shout out to Ginger. Shout out to Pluck. Oops. Oh my goodness. Let me write it again because I kind of messed up the K. There we go. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Sprout. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Eleanor. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zaylee. Shout out to Maddox. Oh my goodness, I messed up. Let me write it again. Shout out to Carlos. Shout out to Kenzie. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Lucia. Shout out to Lincoln. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Adiba. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Embry. Shout out to Lucia. Shout out to Elsa. Shout out to Fatima. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shaya or Chaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Joy. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Chai Young. Shout out to Huda. Shout out to Naya or Nia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Elijah. Shout out to Billy. Shout out to Chantel. Shout out to Zia. Shout out to Anna Isabel. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to Magdalena. Shout out to Nessie. Shout out to Darcy. Shout out to Karina. Shout out to Krista. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Laluka. Shout out to Marianne. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Bo. Shout out to Jonah. Shout out to Adelisha. Sorry if I mispronounce her name. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Cindy. Shout out to Bay. Shout out to Buntilde. Shout out to Melody. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Annika. Shout out to Liam. Shout out to Dario. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Mateus. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Linda. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Shifa. Shout out to Rodrigo. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to David. Shout out to Zoni. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Elle. Shout out to Hunter. Shout out to Amina. Shout out to, is it Thea? Cool. Shout out to Angel Ivan. Shout out to Felix. Shout out to Wish Lane. Shout out to Kinley. Shout out to Hansini. Shout out to Nia. Shout out to Han. Thank you. Is it Dovelin? Thank you, Dovelin. Or is it Dove? Dove? Thank you, Dove. Shout out to Dove. Shout out to Blanca. Shout out to Stray Kids. Shout out to Ellen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Samantha. Excuse me. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Tanya. Thank you. Thank you, Lucia. Shout out to London. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Oops. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your patience. I know I'm not the fastest writer, especially when the chat goes really fast. So thank you for your patience. Write your name if I haven't gotten to you. Shout out to Kamoya. Shout out to Kalia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Dove. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lino. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Aisha. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Or Aisha. Shout out to Tessa. Shout out to Yuri. Shout out to Zakari. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Samaya. Shout out to V. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Kingston. Shout out to Hastings. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Zena. Bye, Lucia. Thank you for dropping by. Shout out to Chandler. Shout out to Kimaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Terry. Shout out to Sua. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to the two Sophias. Bye, Chandler. Thank you for stopping by. Shout out to Tyler. Shout out to Adele. Shout out to Melanie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Julietta. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to Lamis. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Haiti. Shout out to Renaya. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Carol. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Jiyoung. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Chance. Shout out to Asha. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Evie. Shout out to Chiquis. Shout out to YOLO. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Hallie. Shout out to Maxim. Shout out to Brooke. Thank you, Erin, for your support. Shout out to Erin. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Amara. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Veronica. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Siden or Sidon. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Azur. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Serafina. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Sapphire. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Levi. Shout out to Dominic. Shout out to Avia or Avia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Tata. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Eviana. Shout out to Brianni. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Zamira or Zamira. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Dakota. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Tina. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Sheena. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Zayden. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Josephine. Shout out to Nor. Shout out to Kenley. Shout out to Romero. Shout out to Miles. Shout out to McKinley. Shout out to Kelly. Shout out to Farah. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Samari. Shout out to Sitlali. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Miracle. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Jaina. Shout out to Asher. Shout out to Cassandra. Shout out to Sheena. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to write your name. I truly appreciate it. I live stream every day, so I hope you can tune in. I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.